So here we are again with another film that was predictably set to fail. They put it into position to not win, and they're doing it with the idea that somehow they're going to be able to make even more sequels and prequels to films that get farther and farther away from the source material and the whole reason for people to be interested in the franchise to begin with. A small cameo doesn't seem to cut it with fans when you're looking at certain projects. And characters who already had a satisfying end really don't need a prequel story. Of course, I'm talking about Furiosa and the fact that this is something that just didn't need to exist. In fact, it really didn't need to exist for $168 million in production budget and whatever they dumped into it for their ads in print. So let's talk about it, because everybody else is. As you can see here, we're going to talk about the fact that it didn't start off well to begin with. The Thursday preview numbers here domestically in the United States was only $3.5 million. That doesn't scream super successful blockbuster hit. And, well, I know what a blockbuster hit is. My merchandise right down below. Just a quick reminder, you can check out beachpunk.us and you may find something that hits with you. It also helps me. So consider checking out beachpunk.us. With that said, this was possibly the worst ever Memorial Day weekend on record when it comes to the box office. I would suggest it is, because if you don't adjust numbers for inflation, how are you going to know that you were still better than Temple of Doom, which is the era that they're pointing back towards? And I don't think that's the competitor you want to pick out. But at $3.5 million, as I said, we didn't start well. And as the weekend went on, the Furiosa film, along with Garfield, were in a dead heat at number one with a $31 million predicted Memorial Day weekend. This number is significantly depressed from the expectations that were set for this film a while ago. They're somewhere in the 40s. Boy, are they disappointed. And this is 2 weekends in a row they've gotten it wrong. And it has them asking some questions, which we'll get to in a moment. But as you can see, Furiosa stalled out with a $58 million global haul, at least through Sunday. That was the projection. Garfield, of course, has been running internationally for a few extra weeks and is nearing $100 million if it hasn't eclipsed it already. And again, I say, this was predictable. You see, once we get to the dust settling, the projection is that Furiosa will just barely pull in front of the Garfield movie. There was a decent chance Garfield would beat it. I thought it was possible. And it's disastrous for the film, but also for Hollywood. And more particularly, it's a complete devastating disaster when it comes to the theaters, because they need things that people are going to come see to stay in business. And there just isn't any. It's one of the reasons why some passable films have had extra long legs in a point in time when people just want to be entertained. And if they can use their free abilities or their discounted abilities to see something, well, they may be encouraged to just spend a couple extra bucks to do so. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, considering the entire financial sector outside of the stock market is in big trouble. And I'm talking about the people, not the products, or, of course, the futures. I'm talking about the fact that people don't have the kinds of money to spend to continually invest in all of these entertainment products. It's just one of the first things to go, because it's a luxury, and you probably have plenty of entertainment already at home. But the numbers tells kind of its own story, and I'll refresh this so that we have the very most current, as of time of recording, to take a look at what the chart looks like for the weekend. And as you can see here, through, well, the other day, the gross was sitting at, not particularly high. 26.3 million at a certain point in time, 24.025. So they're counting on $6 million for each of these films to, well, pull it out. The product If, the film If, has fallen off 52% and is likely to fade away next weekend. It wasn't particularly entertaining, and I did do a review if you want to check it out right up there. I've also reviewed the Furiosa Mad Max Saga film, which I've done in a couple of ways. Once with Mr. X, which you can find up there, and of course a standalone review I released a couple of days ago, and in order not to point over my shoulder again, I'm sure you can find it one way or another. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is still hanging in there, longer legs than I would have expected on a $13 million gross. And if you look at the grand total of things, well, it's not good. It's not good indeed. 122.8. Disney's not doing well, folks. It's got this film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and really nothing else that's coming out for quite some time that can earn them extra revenue. The only thing that they might have some money coming in from would be Deadpool and Wolverine, but even now, with the budget now out there, we're finding that that's an unlikely success scenario. But we are moving too far away from Furiosa, so let's return with the idea that after the misfire of Furiosa, is there a film to bring it back? Well, I just mentioned a moment ago that Deadpool and Wolverine are probably Disney's best bet for anything, and maybe outside of Minions this summer might, be the best thing that can happen to Hollywood. But the question remains, and I'll get this back up to where it should be properly, what's going to come out that's going to intrigue audiences to see? Because outside of the never can miss it FOMO experience of Deadpool, Wolverine, and all of the other cameos that are showing up, I don't expect there's going to be a whole lot of staying power for that either. I could be proven wrong, but a rated R movie that doesn't have a companion piece for a younger group of folks isn't going to pull the same kind of audience, no matter what your pre-sales look like. You can tout all the records you want, but at the end of the day, the scoreboard is the final box office gross, less what it costs you to give you what Disney net collects. And I have to tell you, it's not going to be a whole lot on Deadpool and Wolverine. But the story that hit the hardest, and I think the one that speaks directly to this, is what I said all along. Furiosa was a $168 million flop. Anna Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, well, they made $25.5 million over the slowest Memorial Day weekend ever, and we have yet to get Monday's figures. Once those are in, and it confirms that each of these films only made somewhere between 31 and 35 million, we'll know for sure that, Hollywood is in big, big trouble. 60, I can't even believe this. You're looking at over 7,000 screens worth of film space for these two films, and they couldn't rattle more than 31 million each. And that's bad news. The 4-day Memorial Day weekend is usually one of the biggest of the year, if not the year. This year, not so much. You're looking at Garfield pulling in 24.8. You got 25.5 for Furiosa. And those numbers coming out of Deadline seem to be somewhat reliable. You're looking at, between two films, less than $62 million in position one and position two. And at any moment, they could just fall off and fall by the wayside. Garfield probably had its best opportunity to purr here in the United States this weekend. And Furiosa, I think the engines have stalled. Ultimately, as you can see here highlighted, the soft debut means there's a long road ahead for the film, which has a lofty production budget of $168 million. Obviously, not counting publicity and advertising. Shockingly low. Shockingly low. You can find that story over on the Daily Mail, as well as a bunch of other things if you so choose. But I'm curious what you think, because ultimately that's the most important thing, which is why I try to do my videos in a conversational style that just kind of gets us from one place to another so we can draw our own conclusions, or a collective one, as much as I hate that word nowadays. I'll just say that I don't think Furiosa has staying power. I also think it is not going to make any money, and in fact, I think it'll probably lose somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million, keeping it consistent with a box office that is rejecting modernity at every turn. The film that will come out ahead here is the film with the lowest production budget, which happens to be Garfield, which probably is already in the black. That's right, it's probably already profitable because they have a pre-sale deal with a streaming service on top of all the revenues that they've collected globally, over $100 million to date. So what do you think? Do you think Furiosa makes a fabulous return and speeds to a record box office that allows for it to be profitable? Or do you think that Furiosa fades into the wind, making it very difficult to greenlight another sequel, prequel, threequel, whatever you want to call it? Do you think that this is even more telling now with Garfield, since it didn't quite hit a home run here in the States and is doing, well, decently around the globe, but is this becoming an issue for animated films to make it at the box office as well? Does this actually send us a little bit of foreshadow when it comes to Minions? Are my expectations too high for that one? And perhaps, is Hollywood's too high for Deadpool and Wolverine? Good questions all, I think. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And while you're down there, hit the thumbs up because I would appreciate that. It indicates some level of engagement. And if you would be so kind as to double check that you're subscribed, I would appreciate it because we're on our way to 25K no matter what the, one platform is trying to do to my channel. Because whether or not you believe it's under attack, I know that I'm basically stalling on growth. And I don't think that's lack of content. Anyway, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.